So welcome all to this Jnanvardhini session. Today we have our own speaker, Mr. Bondaiah Adepu, who will be providing us insight of new ISO IEC 27002, the impact and its implications. So I hand over the session to Mr. Adepu. Welcome, sir, and you can start your session. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Limeji. I think I'm audible to everyone.
Yes, clear.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. I welcome all to this knowledge sharing session on the new ISO guidelines for implementing the information security. So myself, I think most of you know, I am working as a ISMS and PMS PCA DSS auditor in the BSI Group India Private Limited, which is a global certification body. I completed 3 years in BSI. During the last 3 years, I attended almost about 330 man days of ISMS and PMS audit. So that is exposure I have to say something which, as per my understanding of the new implementation guideline for the information security. So I'll take this forward with this welcome note. Before we start, there are some disclaimer from my side. The views and opinions expressed here do not relate to any way to my organization where I am working as a employee, but these are my own interpretation of ideas to share with you as a for the purpose of knowledge enhancement. And in the presentation, omissions and commissions are expected and are subject to corrections by known people. As all we know, this is the structure of ISO 27001 2013 standard, which is known as ISMS standard, Information Security Management System, where there are 10 clauses which are a must for any organization to demonstrate their compliance with these clauses. And to support these clauses implementation, 114 controls have been divided in the annexure. That is a basic structure. So basically, an organization has to work on the clauses from 4 to 10, which are the basic for any information security management system, irrespective of the industry or the services they are providing. So these are the 14 control areas, or we call domains. A total of 114 controls have been defined present in the annexure A of the ISMS standard document. So this structure is going to change with the new announcement of the ISO 27002. How this is going to change is, all these 14 domain areas, now they are being classified into 4 themes or domain areas or classes, whatever we call. One is organization controls, which are basically to be implemented by entire organization which want to demonstrate the information security. Second is people level controls for the security of information with respect to people's exposure to information in any organization. Third one is physical security controls. And fourth one is technical controls. Apart from these 4 themes, this particular new document also gives 2 annexures to support the understanding of this new revision. Now the overall overview of the new control, when we see it, organic controls, which are called clause 4 or the theme 4, theme 5 in the document, have a total 37 controls overall. Out of these 37 controls, 34 are existing controls of the 2013 version, and 3 new controls have been incorporated by the committee which has been undertaking this review. The same way in the people control domain or theme, there are 8 controls which are all existing controls. They rearrange the controls into which are connected to the people or the team members or the human beings. Then we have physical security controls. There are 14 controls. Out of 14, 13 are existing 2003 version. One new control has been incorporated. Finally, the technical controls, which totally consist 34 controls. Out of these 34, 27 are existing controls and 7 were newly added. So the two annexes, how we can use it. Annex A, to user attributes. Another new development in this revision is, for each control, the committee has developed an attribute matrix that will come and see it. So how to use these attributes have been described in Annex A, which will help the organization to whether see what type of attributes this particular control belongs to. When we come to each and every control, we will verify that. Annex B will give a mapping between 2013 and 2022 versions of these guidance. So these are the new controls, 11 controls. At the organization level, there is a new control called threat intelligence at 5.7. Information security for the use of cloud services. A new and a very exhaustive descriptive control with respect to cloud usage at 5.2.3. And the other one is ICT readiness for the business continuity at 5.3.0, which is the outcome of this corona and working from remotely. In that situation, how to ensure the ICT readiness that have been described in this particular control. These are the 3 organization level controls which have been newly introduced in this version. Then with respect to physical security control, physical security monitoring, there was a special emphasis on how to monitor the controls already in place for the purpose of physical security. So this particular control also given a detailed guidelines for monitoring. We'll see all the new controls in detail. In the technology area, there are 7 new controls: the configuration management, information deletion, data masking, data leakage prevention, monitoring of activities with respect to complete technology area, then web filtering and secure coding. There are all we know, but this time in this version, there was special emphasis given to incorporate the controls related to the new technology coming up, cloud usage and privacy requirement. That's why this new version emphasis on privacy and cyber security. That was a new version emphasis. In the summary, in case of 58 controls, title of the 35 controls remained as it is. Whatever the name was there in the 2013 version kept as it is, and with the new control numbers been assigned for that according to the theme and domain. And 23 controls have been renamed to have a better understanding and to be in line with the current terminology we are using in our information security domain. Then 56 controls of the 2013 version have been merged based on their functional similarities and made into 24 controls. So these 53 have been totally clubbed and merged depending upon the functional uniformity and listed as the 24 major controls. There are 11 new controls, altogether 93 controls going to be in the Annex A of ISMS. But most of the people have a misconception about that number of controls has come down. It's not true. No control of the 2013 were avoided in the new version. Effectively, when the new version comes into force, we are need to implement 125 controls altogether, 114 of the 2013 version and 11 new controls. I attended some 2-3 webinars before my preparation. In all the one of the presenter told that 16 controls have been avoided. That is not the true picture of the document. So this is the attribute types. Now they developed in the new version. One is a control type. When we choose a control, what type of control? Is it a preventive or a detective or a corrective control by its nature? And the second one is information security properties. What type of properties? Our famous CIA, is it confidentiality, integrity, or availability? And from the cybersecurity point of view, is it going to identify the cybersecurity threats, or is going to protect or detect, respond, or recover? Then operational capabilities of this particular control in the area of governance, asset management, physical security, and secure configuration, identity management, threat and vulnerability management. There are various things when we go to each control, some of the new controls, we'll be able to see how these capabilities have been mapped to each control. Finally, the security domain is the governance and ecosystem, or the protection, or defense, or resilience. So this is a way each control, a matrix have been developed for each and every control, listing what type of control type is applies to all or one of them also. Document gives a very clear idea for each and every reader, what type of control and how to use it, what capability is going to, what result is going to give. Now the document and structure of the new document is in this form. For every control as a control title, then table with attributes, that matrix table, then control definition. What is the control mean? Then what is the purpose of this control? Then further guidance is given very detailed manner. And for each control, any other information, related information also very clearly given, elaborately to understand where we can find out how one control is related to other controls of these 93 controls, and also other ISO standards. Some of the significant features of this new guidance is, within the guidance included subsections. For example, in the control of logging, there are protection of logging, logs, and logs analysis. They give a subsection where the guidance is topic specific, area specific, like how to protect the logs, how to analyze the logs, what type of various controls to be implemented in these areas. And in most of the controls, reference to other ISO standards and documents were included, so that we can get a complete picture when we are to refer the other referred document. And this particular document of the version also contains 38 related definitions, including what is the threat, what is the control requirements. New 38 definitions which were not there earlier have been incorporated here, and some of them have been remodified, redefined also to in line with the current technology trends. In all related controls, legal and regulatory implementation requirements were mentioned. This is a very significant development considering the global environment of the organizations working and servicing, giving the services. For each control, wherever the control connected to any legal or regulatory requirement, they very specifically mentioned that particular aspect has to be part of the implementation. Wherever applicable, geographical requirements also be considered. If, for example, data collection, in that case, respected geography requirements has to be collected. That is one of the control requirement, implement requirement for each control. Two type of policies were required for mention, and earlier for every control or every process or every area, we used to prepare a policy. This time, the policy part they specified information security policy, which is a high-level policy, and there also a mention about the topic-specific policy. This is we'll see when we come to some other controls that I will be able to demonstrate how this specifically two distinct policies to be drafted by the organizations. ISO guidance allows organizations to define their own controls or adopt a control from other frameworks and standards also.
Hello.
Adepu, you have to unmute.
Hello, Adepu. Adepu sir, we are not hearing.
Hello?
Now it's fine. Now it's fine.
Something has come up. Okay. Now, ISO allows the organization to define their own controls, depending upon the local conditions, local legislations, and adopt other controls from other frameworks and standards also. And primarily, the title of the document has been changed from Code of Practice to simply Information Security Controls. So this is a wider coverage and general understanding when we go for implementation of these particular controls. This is a way information security policy and topic specific policy. Information security policy is a general high level that has to be approved by the top management. If we say this is my information security policy, the policy has to be approved by top management, and organization has to demonstrate how and when the top management has approved this policy. There are topic specific policies which can be approved by the level of the management. For example, technology area, or technology head can approve it. If there are HR policy, HR head can approve it. That is a way this particular new version give the guidance to the organization to develop the policies at a high level and topic specific. So when we want to look at the renamed controls to understand how the renaming is going to give a better idea about a particular control, I just taken some of the samples only, not to go into details. Current 2000 version control called teleworking at 6.2.2, now renamed as 6.7, remote working. So this is either your employees or the third-party workers who connect to the information security information systems of an organization remotely. There we need to implement all the controls at 6.7. User registration, deregistration was earlier. You have been renamed as a identity management, which is a broader scope to look at and implement it. Same way, information systems audit controls has been renamed as protection of information systems during audit testing. Sometimes we have to see how the particular control working in an environment, even though the testing environment. In that time, what type of controls to be followed by the organization and the auditors has been specified in 8.3.4. Secure development policy has been renamed as secure development life cycle. It is a refinement of entire sentences and the titles of the document controls. Information communication technology supply chain. This has been renamed as managing the information security in the CIT supply chain. Information communication and technology, all the areas wherever we employ supply chain, how and what type of controls to be implemented. Then responsibilities and procedures have been renamed as 5.24, information security incident management planning and preparedness. And finally, one more example is availability of information processing facilities has been renamed and refined as redundancy in information processing facilities. These are all in line with the usage normally what we use in our information security domain has been put in a proper wording. When we look at the major controls from the 2013 version, these 4 controls, management of removable media, disposal of media, physical media transfer, removal of asset, has been entire control structure has been put in under 7.1.0 called storage media. What type of media you use, the pen drive or the hard disk or the storage, there whatever controls have been combinedly put at under one control. And 9.1.1 access control policy, access to networks and network services has been defined under access control. A simple wording, but giving wider scope for the verification and implementation. User access provisioning, a review of user access rights, removal and adjustment of access rights. These are 3 areas now we covered under access rights. The same way, management of secret authentication information of users and use of secret authentication information, password management system, now has been renamed as authentication information. Then login case, event logging, protection of log information, administrator and operate logs, simply have been put under logging. All the controls up to the version 13 version have been drafted under this logging once control. Then whole change management domain, all the 4 controls up to the 13 version have been brought under 8.3.2 called change management. 18.2.2 compliance with security policies and standards. The technical compliance review has been renamed and put under one control. Confirmation with the policies, rules, standards for the information security. The purpose and the aim of the committee in redefining and rewording this is to give a wider coverage and in line with the current terminologies. And one specific thing happened in this revision is one control 80.2.3 of the 2013 version has been put under the 2 controls at 5.3.6, which is the confirmation with the policies, rules, and standards for the information security. And the same control requirements have been put under 8.8 at management of technical vulnerabilities. These are the changes with respect to merging the controls and rename the controls. Now we take away, since most of the participants in the present meeting are already aware about the 114 controls. That's why I'm not gone into detail and due to time constraint also. But however, I've taken some liberty to give an overview of the new controls, the 11 new control part. These are technically, this is again control, threat intelligence. The control definition is information related to information security threats should be collected and analyzed to produce threat intelligence. This is a definition. Purpose is to prevent awareness, provide awareness of the organization's threat environment so that the appropriate mitigation actions can be taken. So with this purpose, some of the points put under the guidance is organization need to develop a threat intelligence at 3 levels: the strategic level, tactical level, and operational level. Threat intelligence should be relevant, insightful, contextual, and actionable. These are the broad area where when we develop a threat intelligence controls, an organization has to look at these aspects of the control for they're going to implement it. The threat intelligence activities should include define the objectives, what we want to achieve by this control. Identify reliable internal and external resources. Analyze the threat intelligence in a systematic manner. Communicate and share with all the stakeholders who are connected to this particular domain. Threat intelligence should be vetted against the risk management process, technically preventive detective controls, and information security test procedures. Normally, my experience is when environment, IT environment, they put a test environment, they don't look at the accuracy and what the control they normally implement in the live environment, they don't look at the test environment. But in this particular new control, a special emphasis was mentioned in case whatever the control measures we are going to implement as a result of threat intelligence, those are also to be put under test environments. Now that other connected controls are 5.2.5, 8.7, all this they mentioned. The second new control is a cloud services. This is very interesting. I found this is going to give a lot of work for the organizations as well as to the auditors also and implementers also. Processes for the acquisition, the use, management, and exit from the cloud services. So far, in my audit experience, many organizations have put most part of the or some part of the IT environment in the cloud, AWS and Google, Microsoft everywhere. But nobody has looked at the exit area. When we want to exit from this particular cloud service provider, how we'll do it? What is the procedure? So this particular control now emphasizing on an organ also look at the exit provisions when they decide to go for the cloud solutions. Require the topic-specific policies on the use of cloud services. Here, the topic-specific policy means in case an organization going to adopt a hybrid cloud environment or a private cloud or public cloud. So depending upon the environment they choose to host their technology infrastructure, they need to define a topic-specific policy. That is the requirement of this new version. And when we go for the cloud provider location says there are some responsibilities which are called shared responsibilities. From my experience, whenever we are auditing, particularly PCA cases, when the PCA environment is in the cloud, we specifically look at what is the responsibility of the cloud service provider, what is the responsibility of the entity with respect to the security or the card data security. So in that case, when we verify every cloud provider, they have already defined what is cloud service provider responsibility with respect to the environment other standard. If we go and see Amazon Azure environment, there we can see the documents with respect to PAMS, what is their responsibility, what is the client responsibility, what is shared responsibility. Particularly when the shared responsibility comes, the organization has to be very careful how we are going to fulfill part of the responsibilities and how we get the responsibility from the service provider. So this is very critical, and most of the cases right now required attention was not given in the shared responsibility area. So organization has to look at this particular control requirement in the new document. Organization should define associated information security requirement when we move for the cloud services selection criteria, role and responsibility of the organization and cloud service provider. Information security control responsibilities by organization and control service provider. Cloud service provider. Know-how of the cloud service security services capabilities. When we take in the various security services of the service provider of the cloud, we need to see how far those services are meeting our organization or our information security responsibilities or the requirements. Obtain assurance from the cloud service provider about the up-to-date and the capability of the security requirements. Changes when unused, changes when user multiple cloud service provider. If an organization is using more than one cloud service provider, what are changes in the environments, how they are going to affect the information security defined by the organization has to be looked at. Information security incident management with respect to the cloud service provider. In case of an incident happened, what is the responsibility of the cloud service provider has to be kept in mind. Organization approach to monitoring, reviewing, and evaluating the cloud service risk from time to time. Finally, the exit procedure from cloud service provider. If none of these controls are there, the organization is going to be added non-conformity in the new environment. And further, organization should define cloud service level objectives and qualitative objectives. Undertake relevant risk assessment, access control requirement, storage locations and jurisdictions. This is very specifically mentioned in the current in the new version about the jurisdictions and where the cloud services provider going to store the data in view of the privacy regulations coming all over the world. CSP support to resilience from an incident, subcontracting by CSP. In case cloud service provider further subcontracting the environment, we need also look at those subcontracting clauses and obligations. Predefined agreements or customer agreements. Most of the cloud service providers, they already put a standard agreement. Every organization is just signing the agreement and availing services. But this new version, new document, asks the organizations to verify how far the cloud service provider given agreement meeting your requirements or not. In case there, you need to have a customized agreement with the cloud service provider. And enter change management criteria, the other ISO documents with related to cloud service provider. Then the third one is ICT readiness for the business continuity. The control definition ICT readiness should be planned, implemented, maintained, and tested based on the business continuity objectives and ICT continuity requirements of the organization. Here, this control says outcome of a business impact assessment. Every organization has to conduct a business impact in case there is a disruption in the services, how that is going to impact the business requirements. So BIA is a must as per the new standard for the information security as ISMS. Define performance and capacity requirements of ICT. Organization has to define their performance requirements, the capacity requirements of ICT for the business continuity purpose. Risk assessment involving the ICT services. ICT options before, during, and after disruption. What type of ICT requirements we need to put in place? That has to be identified and documented and made available. ICT continuity plans covering the response and the recovery procedures. What we talk about here is RA, RTO, RPO requirements of the business continuity. In that timelines, what is the requirement of ICT to be verified as per this control? Regularly evaluating through exercise and testing. This is one of the key requirements. Now, in the normal course, the organizations does not give much attention. They put a DR site or the redundancy network lines, but they never test it. They put a high availability router switches, but they never test the readiness of the standby systems. So here this control says regularly evaluate the test environment, test devices to ensure that they are available in case of a disruption. Plans approved by the management. All the ICT business continuity plans has to be approved by the management. RTO of each prioritized ICT to be documented and to be adhered as part of this requirement. Further guidance is from these ISO standards. And now 3 organization level new requirements will be verified. Now the physical security monitoring. The control definition is premises should be continuously monitored for unauthorized physical access. Purpose is to detect and deter unauthorized physical access to the ICT environment, technology environment or the infrastructure. Here, the control requirements are monitored by surveillance systems. We need to have a 24/7 surveillance systems wherever possible, and preferably surveillance systems is the mandatory requirement. Should cover access to sensitive areas within, outside the premises. Just keeping the surveillance system within the not only premises, but periphery of the premises also to be monitored. This is interesting. Third one is contact detectors, triggers, sound or motion detectors are to be periodically tested. So quarterly or half yearly, minimum quarterly is the best policy to test the surveillance systems with respect to particularly contact detector means sensors, triggers, sound of the systems, monitoring motion detectors in case of cameras. One more interesting control requirement is Unoccupied areas also to be monitored. Normally, tendency for organizations is they don't bother about the storages, and all other unmanned areas. There nobody going, that's why should we monitor? But this control specifically mentions unoccupied areas are to be monitored on a regular basis. Design of monitoring system should be kept confidential. Interesting aspect of this monitoring is if we design our surveillance systems, those design details has to be kept confidential and made available to few people who need to know that. Battery powered equipment should be particularly tested. This is also interesting aspect of the monitoring of the physical security items. Consider local laws and regulations with respect to monitoring and recording of the events or the CCTV camera, all that. Now, when we come to technical controls, first one is a configuration management system. Configurations, including security configurations of hardware, software, services, and network should be established, documented, implemented, monitored, and reviewed. This is a broad requirement about the configuration management with respect to all the systems, just not only applications, but also all the devices, softwares, and network devices. In the guidance part, define and implement processes and tools to enforce the different security configurations. And this configuration should cover hardware, software, networks, services, including the cloud services. Develop standard configuration templates based on the level of protection required for a system, IS policy, and guidance from the vendor. Independent security organizations to be considered to develop these templates for implementing the configuration management systems. Templates should be reviewed and updated periodically, not only just once in a year. As and when the changes happens, these templates have to be reviewed and modified. While developing, what are the areas they have to keep in mind is minimum IDs with the privilege or admin access rights. In organization, we should not give privilege IDs or admin rights to many people. That I may re-emphasize in this control. Least minimum people should be given the admin rights. Disable unnecessary unused secure IDs. Disable unnecessary functions and services. This is one control where we look at very minutely in the PCI DSS. Now this has come in ISMS also. Restrict access to host parameter settings. Ensure the cross synchronization. Change vendor default authentication information. Look at the license requirements for each software. If there is a license requirement, how many licenses are being configured in the configuration has to be verified. Implement change management procedure for each configuration changes. Configuration information to be treated as a confidential. Now, 8.1.10 is information deletion. The requirement control definition is information stored in information systems, devices, or in any other storage media should be deleted when no longer required. This is the requirement of data minimization, what we talk in our personal data security area, to prevent unnecessary exposure to sensitive information and to comply with the legal, statutory, regulatory, and contractual requirements of the information deletion. Here also, the guidance says we need to develop topic-specific policies. If it's a sensitive area, personal information or non-personal information, what is our deletion policy? Data, how long we'll keep it, keeping in view the requirements of the data owners and the regulatory requirements. Incorporate deletion requirements in third-party agreements. In case we are sharing the data with a third party, we need to incorporate the data deletion requirements with third parties. Select information deletion methods. What type of methods to be employed to delete the data securely? record the results of the information deletion as evidences, and obtain evidence from the service providers, including the cloud service providers. Whenever there is a different policy there to delete the data after a particular period, whenever we do ourselves, we need to keep the records available for the data verification by the management or the auditors. Not only within the, in case of third parties also, we need to get a confirmation, including the service cloud service providers. Those records has to be kept for further reference in the future time, either by the management or by the auditors. Consider relevant legislations, regulations related to sensitive information. These are all our personal data regulations requirement, which are now part of the ISMS implementation. Deletion mechanism should be appropriate to storage media and devices. So when we store the data in a storage system, Veritas or any storage system, or in a local hard disk and a tape, depending on the media type on the device where you are storing, that media type is going to make a difference about the data deletion. So we need to consider what type of deletion mechanism we need to employ for deleting the data depending upon the device and the storage media. Verify the deletion methods being provided by the cloud service providers. In case cloud service provider says, we have this particular service to delete your data, is it going to meet our requirement or not? That also to be verified. Follow control measures of the 7.414 in case of physical destruction media. This is special requirement. There are other related ISO standards are 27017 and ISO 27555. This has come because of global regulations about the privacy data minimization and data masking. This is another interesting area to our teams here. Data masking should be used in accordance with the organization's topic-specific policies on access control and other related topic-specific policies and business requirements, taking applicable legislation into consideration. Purpose is to limit the exposure of sensitive data, including PII, and to comply with legal, statutory, regulatory, contractual requirements. Here, the word data masking has been used for in a generic way. Normally, when we talk about the data masking, we understand the numerical characters being masked as a XXX, something like that. But here, this version, it has been used as a generic for all these pseudonymization, anonymization, encryption, nulling or deleting the characters, varying numbers and dates to replace a particular numbers or the dates, substitution of a particular text, replacing values with their hash value, obfuscation of the data. So all these technologies what we normally employ for masking the data or hide the data for some purpose, it been used as a data masking in the regulation. And while doing the data masking, we need to consider PII principles access requirements, legal and regulatory requirements, and level of strength of the data masking technology what we are using. Is it sufficiently secure or not? What type of encryption mechanism we are using? That is to be verified. Agreements and restrictions on use of processed data. Even though we employ one of the masking technology, but that data, whether to be further processed or not, that has to be incorporated in the agreements when we are having a data sharing with the third parties. Prohibiting collating the processed data with other information. Knowledge of the algorithm should be treated as confidential. What are the algorithms or the technologies or the logics using the data masking technology should be kept confidential and to be treated as a top priority secrets setup. Resource identifier also should be anonymized. Resources identifier means file names. When we are storing a data with a particular file name, that particular file name also should be anonymized with some of the technique what we talked about above. Then the other one is data leakage prevention. The definition of control is data leakage prevention measures should be applied to systems, networks, other devices that process, store, or transmit the sensitive information. To detect and prevent the unauthorized disclosure and extraction of information by individuals or systems. Here the guidance is very elaborate, but I've taken a few of the very important points here to share with your team. Data leakage from systems, networks, and other devices to be considered. Identify and classify information and the channels of leakage. Each and every environment in the IT infrastructure, we need to identify what are the channels where the data may get leaked. Quarantine emails contain sensitive information. So when we implement the data leakage prevention measures, if a particular email or any data been quarantined and kept in, that should not be left unattended. Because that particular quarantine data in the email or any information may contain sensitive information. So that is to be taken note to prevent the data leakage of the sensitive nature. Determine each user ability to copy and paste or upload the data. The users, whoever can accessing the critical systems, the sensitive systems, in case they have the capability to paste, cut, paste, or copy, paste the data, how far they are being given that particular permission has to be verified by the organizations when we provide a ability for the users to copy the data. Need-based approval from the data exports. In case of data exports, every data export has to be have a prior approval before doing that as a data leakage prevention measure. Taking screenshots and images, image capturing of the data should be prevented. Implementing encryption, access control, and physical protection for the storage having the backup data. Identify and monitor the intelligence actions of the adversaries. When we store the data, in case there is a adversaries who are going to attack that data, we need to monitor their intelligence actions, what type of attack they may happen. That comes from the threat in the intelligence control domain. Consider legal aspects before deploying the DLP measures. Monitoring activities, this is another control, new control. Monitoring activities are with respect to technology area. Networks, systems, and applications should be monitored for anomalous behaviors and appropriate action taken to evaluate potential information security incidents. That's the definition of the control. Purpose is to detect anomalous behavior and potential information security incidents. Here, the guidance is also very elaborate in the turning to 2 pages. Monitor according to business and information security requirements of organization. Consider relevant laws and regulations. Establish a baseline of normal behavior and monitor against such baseline controls what we put in for the monitoring of the activities. Inbound or outbound traffic to be monitored, particularly in all sensitive areas. User access to monitoring systems and critical applications. To be monitored by all users in case of the critical systems. Very specifically, this control says admin level access to be monitored regularly. Logs from security tools are also to be monitored. All event logs, any event happening on the systems, those logs are to be monitored. In PCI, this is a very critical, very elaborate requirement is there. Now I find this particular PCI requirement also being incorporated in the ISMS. This is a very interesting requirement. Events related to the recompilation of the code. In case of the software development or the application deployment in the live environment, in case there happen a recompilation. So that event to be monitored and analyzed. Why the recompany has been taken place? Is it been authorized and a purpose is been established or not? Proper configuration of monitoring systems and access to monitoring system also to be monitored. Consider to implement automated monitoring tools with dedicated teams. Real-time notifications are alerts to be, teams has to be go as a part of the monitoring activities. Web filtering, this is also a new requirement. This is also going to put a new responsibility on the organization to implement this particular control, which is one of the very critical area for the information security. Control definition is access to external websites that should be managed to reduce exposure to malicious content. Purpose is to protect the system from being compromised by malware and to prevent access to unauthorized web resources. In the guidance, consider blocking the following type of websites. These are all generally we are aware, but when we have to implement and as auditors, when we have to verify the implementation of this control, websites having the information upload function. If an organization using people have been given access to a website which has the upload function, that has to be properly verified and approval to do that on the need basis only to be implemented. Known and suspected malicious websites to be blocked. Command and control servers access to be blocked. Websites identified through threat intelligence. What are the websites we identify which are harmful through threat intelligence should be blocked. Websites sharing the illegal content. There are general way what we do the web filtering. So this particular control is a new control, re-emphasizing the implementation area for the control the people who have the access to websites through their internal information systems. Develop and communicate rules for safe and appropriate use of the online resources. Every user in the organization to be made aware how they can safely and appropriately access online resources for any purpose. Suitable sharing, training and regular communication to all to be given. Not to overrule the browser advisories about the security of the specific website. Normally, when we access certain websites, the browsers will have a knowledge or capability to provide an alert immediately. So users should not overlook that advice or the trigger before accessing the website. So finally, the technical new control is secure coding. This I need not emphasize. Secure coding guidelines also running into some 2 pages in the document. A minimum security baseline should be established and applied for in-house, third-party, and open source applications. So, in my early experience, almost all organizations are using free tools, open source tools, but no one do the due diligence of the open source tool before they use in application development or running their applications. That is one of the highly neglected area as far as the use of the open source software is concerned. Wherever most of our my audits, this has been recorded as a non-conformity to take action by the respective organizations. Organizations should monitor real-world threats and update advisories and update their SDLC process according to the new threats and vulnerabilities. And there's a detailed guidelines running into 2 pages on the planning and before coding what the organization has to do, during the coding what the team members has to do, after coding at the time of testing and integrating the particular application, what type of guidance to be followed has been very clearly given there. It's very useful and very detailed one for the auditors as well as the implementers to look at this. And the real standard is ISO 15408 series. Here the 9 controls pertains to technical controls. And there are in ISO, there is a sector-specific standards, other standards apart from ISMS. There are other standards which are connected to ISO 27002 control guidance. So here, ISO 27017, Code of Practice for Information Security Controls, based on ISO 2700 for cloud services. In case of when we use cloud services, this 27017 is the guidance with respect to 27002, what type of cloud specific controls or code of practice we need to follow. And with the change of 27002, this particular standard or the code of practice also going to get affected, because we have to verify, cross-verify both the controls of 27017 and 27002. The second one is a PAMS, the 2019 ISO 27001. PAMS is an extension of the ISMS. Any organization which want to get certified for the PAMS, they need to have the ISMS first, then they can go for the ISO 27701. So in view of the ISO 27001 going to change, this particular 27001 also going to change or not, I will going to give some idea in the next few minutes. And the third one is ISO 27011. This is Code of Practice for Information Security Controls based on ISO 27002 for the telecommunication organizations. I don't have much idea about the what certificate for this, but this 27011 also need to be implemented as per the 2700 controls. Then the other standard is 27799, which pertains to health informatics. Information security management in health using the ISO 27002. So as per my current knowledge, these are 4 standards which have a direct connection with the ISO 27002, the new version, which are going to have some impact in implementing these 4 controls in the respective sector-specific areas. Now, since I also have a exposure to PMS audit and implementation, I consider the 27701 standard, how the standard is going to have a relation with the ISO, new ISO 27002. When we see ISO 27701 PMS standard, there are the seven areas where there is additional requirement with respect to privacy, private data, PII, personal information. In case an organization has to get certified for the personal information that holding as a controller or a processor, what additional controls or additional areas they need to take care has been defined in PMS document at 5.2.1, 2.2, 2.3, 5.3.2, 5.4.12, 5.4.13, 5.4.2. There are 7 areas. So all these 7 areas are the clauses of the ISO 27001. Now, as per the information available in our community, the new ISO, modified ISO 27001 going to be released by ISO around May, June, or July. That is the time period most of the sources have indicated it. But when the new ISO 27001 going to be released, the higher structure, that means the clauses are not going to change. The clauses are going to remain as it is. The related description of the clauses may be undergo change. That is what we call the modification. So, keeping that particular information at the point of time, this point of time, I don't see any change going to happen in this PMS area of the class 5 of the 7 requirements. Whereas there are another 29 guidances or the additional requirements for the personal data given in the PMS document, that is ISO 2001. These are the 29 areas. All these are the controls of Annexure A. So when we would have a new set of Annexure A in the ISMS, these additional information with respect to personal data going to be still need to be implemented in case an organization want to certify for the PMS part. Otherwise, this will not be going to affect further organization. So these are the 29 controls which are all are connected to our Annexure A of the ISMS. So as Annexure A going to change, these controls also going to be correlated, and here PMS requirement is with respect to the personal data handled by an organization as a controller or a processor. What type of additional controls they are to give? It's not a substitution. This control is additionally for the ISMS. That's why an organization which we want to get certified with PMS has also need to implement the ISMS in the first place. And in the ISO 27701, Annexure A, which pertains to the obligations, the requirements of the controllers, these 4 requirements, all are based on the privacy data protection principles. So these principles are going to be remain same as it is. About the conditions for the collection and processing, not going to have any change, even though ISO 27002 have been modified. So as per my understanding currently, the ISO 27701 going to be still applicable and going to have the requirement fulfillment for the personal data processing or the personal data security. These are the Annexure B of the ISO 27001, same condition for collection and processing, obligation towards PI principles, privacy by design and privacy by default, sharing and transfer, disclosure. These are not going to change as per my understanding. Otherwise, we have to see in future what is the outcome. These are the documents which we need to refer to understand and have a comprehensive idea about the change in ISO 27002. So this is what I want to share. Particularly, I made an attempt to give some idea to look at the new controls came into the ISO 27001, which are also going to be incorporated in the original, the high level standard called ISMS. And I do hope this will be give some idea to the team who are in the current meeting. And in view of this, what the organ need to do right now. Normally, if we see the ISO standard implementation over the period, whenever there is a change in any standard, normally ISO provided the switchover period for 2 years. So keeping that view, when the new ISMS going to be announced in the month of June, organization going to have 2 years time period to implement and get certified under the new ISMS standard as per the current revised ISO 27002 requirements. So within the 2-year period, can we relax? It all depends upon the audience size and in the critical of the information security they want to implement it. If the organization is big, it is better to right away to start the journey. In case organizations are not having any sensitive data and do not have any legal requirements or the high level client obligations, the geographical implications, then they can relax a bit. But now or later, we need to go for this. There is no escape for the change. So keeping in view, the earlier the better. That is the advice our organization given to our clients, and that applies to everyone. So keeping that view, a lot of activities happening across the community in the information security communities across the world. So this particular standard has given I personally feel that this standard has given what we call alignment with the current trends in the technology and information security and the cyber security, personal data security part. So with that, I thank you everyone for your valuable time. If any questions are there, I will be glad to answer to the ability of best of my ability.
Sir, my small question is, you mentioned about websites, lookalike websites, or some websites are to be prevented or removed. If there are multiple lookalike websites like my organization, how I am supposed to take care in this particular situation?
So
or what should be the measures?
Okay, the new control has come in the new version is about the people accessing outside resources. Your own website, not a problem. If for example, a developer accessing various free tools websites. In that case, a developer, what type of he should take care? That is a requirement of this particular new control. With your own or company, if you have some 4 or 5 websites of your own development where you're sharing your company information, your portals are there, that is not a problem. That is your own.
No, my question is, the control says that you have to take care of malicious websites, etc. It is within my organization. I can use whatever solutions are given, PKI, signature, or likewise. But to protect my clients from falling into trap of lookalike websites, what the controls suggest? If it is beyond my, whether there are no controls on such situation in ISO 27002 or whatever are the standards.
Sir, now you are talking about your client and you. Can you just clarify to me? Is this question pertains to web filtering of your own websites or your client website?
So
no,
may I add
my yeah.
Dr. Limay, so there are quite a few organizations who provide you brand protection services. What they do is they have an engine which runs like a crawler on the internet, and they will keep seeing what are the other phishing sites available or who is using your logo somewhere else. So a lot of manufacturing entities, they use these services, that who's using their logo as a counterfeit product and a whole lot of things. Even banks do that.
Yeah, I got your point, but how to remove those fake websites? It is ranking or it is as far
Yes.
as who are in your lookalike domain.
Right.
But
So
my
what they do
specific
is,
question is,
what they do is that they help you draft the required documents to these domain hosting service providers to get the service down.
but is it so easy that these websites are taken down?
It's not so easy as we speak, but there
Yeah.
is a procedure, and you will have to showcase that you are the valid domain owner of the domain that you have, and you have a business incorporation linked to that domain.
Got it.
Dr. Limay, you remember, Meena Lal here, you remember the discussion that we had when I was taking you all through a judgment by Delhi High Court on injunction.
Correct.
Where, where I'd cited many illustrations. So crawler, etc. had been discussed in some of those judgments. And it said that actually enforcing such things is very difficult.
Yeah, I'm facing a similar problem, and that's why I asked what is the technical solution best possible right now.
Correct.
It was with that respect only.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Thanks anyway.
Now, Ms. Anand says that the web hosting service provider will be able to block those websites which are which you can establish that is not a proper website.
Meena Lal ma'am, I had one question on the similar lines. So can this be linked to the trade name and what do you call trade names and the symbols that we use.
Yes, it can be.
Copyright.
Whatever you get registered as a brand, so it could
Yes,
be a
yes.
logo, it could be a name, it could be whatever. I mean, it could be a sign, whatever is to be registered and gets registered as a brand.
Right.
Then obviously the law will be the same applying to that.
Sure, sure.
And let me tell you, it's a very, very basic law. I mean, we think about brand protection in this sense as a very different, I mean, maybe we think about it as a different law because trademarks is dealt with another law, that is Trademarks Act. But basic procedures which apply to trademark law also is just the same. So for example, first of all, if somebody goes to the court and says that my business is diminishing because my trademark is being used in any other form by somebody else, and there are so
Right.
many other domains which are carrying it, the first thing that the court will say that that these people should be prevented from using your trademark. So that execution of that prevention, whether it has sufficiently happened so that no harm is caused to you in future, that becomes a very difficult job.
Okay, but ma'am, in terms of a domain name, even an alphabet here and there is actually a different domain name altogether.
Absolutely, it does make a difference, and that's where all these fake emails written sometimes on behalf of a managing director, etc., and even
Right.
in bank instances. So all that itself makes a one dot here and there will make a lot of difference.
Yes, yes, yes.
Not only that, madam, there are some special characters are there where I access a different way. In ICICI Bank, there's a website was created with a I with a different dot is there in the avoid. So that
Yes.
character was created with a website.
Yes, absolutely. Technology is very sensitive to all this. So all these things also make a lot of difference. For example, I'll tell you, particularly in brands, I will tell you something which sounds phonetically similar. The spelling may be different, but for example, somebody writes DABUR is a Dabur that we know. But if somebody writes DAABOR, that also can be pronounced as Dabur. So phonetically also it is similar. So there in such instances also the courts have given injunctions. Okay. So the same thing in spellings when you say domain name.
At the start of this session, we were discussing about Navi's name. Navi and Navi, the loan portal.
Correct.
Yes, in fact, there is a finance company by the name of Navi.
Yeah.
Sir, what are you doing then? Your brand name is being utilized.
No, way back in 2001, 2002, I had filed a patent for a service called lookalikes.in. Okay, please look at that. That is for situations where there are two genuine, you can say, owners of a given domain name. Because there are many cases where we see what I think Mr. Adepu has been telling are phishing sites. So if you find there are phishing sites, then you take an immediate action to bring it down through contacting the icon or the registered district. But you know that most of the phishing websites don't exist beyond a couple of hours. Whatever they can do, they will do within the 2 hours, and then they will not be existing. Whereas we are talking of a genuine site, like now this navi.co.in, which Sachin Bansal has started as a company. I had this issue long time back, but you see, he also perhaps got some rights on that. As I was telling, Navi actually is a trademark of Nokia. So when I took up the name Navi, I actually did not consider Navi because Navi Mumbai was there, and also this Japanese trademark was there for this Navi. Okay, now he has taken Navi. I don't know whether that Japanese trademark still exists, and he will have a problem later on. I have handled many such cases also earlier, domain name cases. You know, basically they are handled through arbitration, and unfortunately, India doesn't have. In fact, I actually handled one Indian domain name case. Okay,
Huh.
it was sensex.in. Okay, now that had been registered by an individual. This was, I think, about 10 years back or something like that. Whereas BSA actually objected to that. Okay, so like that, it will be there. Okay, that is, there are cases where it is not with a malicious intention that somebody opens a similar this thing. He feels for various reasons that he also has got a right for that particular name for some reason. Now that is, you know, trademark registration can be done in different countries and even in the same countries for different classifications, same trademark could be registered. So first come, first served will be the most important aspect in preserving the trademark. What I had suggested in lookalikes.in is to have a voluntary disclosure in each of the two places. For example, if you are having something called navi.co, I have got navi.co. In my site, I will say navi.co is not mine. I am not that person. I am going to disclose that. And I would like you also to disclose that, because we don't want confusingly similar domain names, because we are not, both of us are not that kind of people. So there, it is a question of giving appropriate disclosure so that visitors to one website will not get confused that I am dealing with Sachin Bansal's website. When people come to me, I don't want them to think that I am a part of Sachin Bansal. In fact, I have received many inquiries in the last couple of months. When this Navi.co people, they have been sending out SMS and other things for loans and other things. And I am also an ex-banker. So I have a financial background. So many people thought that I have started a new finance company. So in fact, even some of my relatives asked whether I have started a new venture. So in fact, my mark exists from a long time. In fact, my first book in the year 2000, I wrote with the pen name of Navi, only to establish Navi as a registered mark, because at that time service marks were not there.
Right.
Okay, so you had to have a product to claim a right on a particular this thing. So I said, Navi wants the book, this thing kind of a thing. Okay, and otherwise Navi, Navi, on the website, it is there everywhere. I encountered a problem when this Avatar movie came, because there they had this Navi as a name of that clan, which was phonetically Navi.
Right.
Okay. So, and in the Google, my queries on Navi was not appearing, because Avatar was coming right on the top, and I was not coming at all. And even recently, I have written on navi.org that now Avatar has receded in the background, but Google search engine is not able to distinguish Navi and Navi.
Right.
Now, as Sachin Bansal's company also becomes more popular, people will get cross these things. Okay. He will take an advertisement itself on Google, perhaps. Okay. Now, if you search for Navi, the Google engine actually adds Navi into that. Okay. So these are confusingly similar names with some genuine claims for both the people, which has to be handled on the disclaimer basis, which I have suggested.
Right.
Okay. Whereas phishing sites are different. In fact, I remember you also have to look at navi.org regarding Union Bank of India problem, which I had. Okay. So they have a service from this RSA people. RSA people run this kind of what Adepu or somebody was telling, monitoring service. And in case they identify a phishing website, they take measures. The only way they can contact is they can contact the registrar of that website. This is where I have been constantly telling that hiding the ownership of a domain name under the pretext of privacy. Okay, you know, there are privacy related things where you can hide the ownership of domain name. If you want to know what is navi.org, if you go to who is, you will get the information. But if I pay some money, they will hide my privacy, these things. So when you want to take legal action, this privacy principle which is being adopted by the domain name people is actually preventing legitimate action to be taken against them, because you don't have the name, you don't have the.
It is protecting some crooked people
it's
also.
protecting the criminal. Okay. But I think this RSA people and others are working through ICON, and maybe in a genuine phishing case, they try to bring it down quickly. Within 24 hours, I think they are bringing it down. So most of the banks in India have that kind of a service that is relevant for the security. But from the legal perspective, if both have got some kind of a claim, because if my name is there, your name is similar, we will go. There are many such cases. If you go to my site now, this navi.org old sites, as well as lookalikes.in, this has been something which I have been discussing in every cyber law course at that time, domain name related things. Phonetic also, okay, problems are there. That is an issue which needs to be handled as a techno-legal issue. In fact, where Canara Bank had this issue. If you remember, Canara Bank even today does not use canarabank.com. They use CanBank. The reason was canarabank.com had been registered by a Nigerian party. So when I met them at that time, when I said that time, it will be 15 years back. Okay. I told them that they have to take action on this, because there could be people who will accept deposits in the name of Canara Bank, or if there is a canarabank.com. So they did take the action. They served the notice to the counterparty. And nowadays, ICON has introduced a system where if they feel it's genuine, they will take very quick action. Even pending the resolution of the problem, which will take about 2 months, they sometimes block the particular domain. I think that is what is relevant for security people. You have to work through the ICON, and the registrar's name will always be available. Abuse at that particular registrar will be available. You may not know the owner, but you will be having access to the registrar. You have to actually give a notice to him, a proper notice, and get it vacated. If they do not take action, I have been suggesting that you should give a second notice saying that you have not been taking action on my complaint, so you are complicit in this fraud.
Right.
And escalate it, then perhaps they should take action. That's a different topic altogether. We are moving from ISO to domain name disputes.
Right, absolutely. Yes.
Okay.
So, but it's an interesting topic, and some of us, I mean, anybody who wants to take up a session on that. It's a very
I have got a lot of old cases will be discussed on this, like Volkswagen, VW. India had this Yahoo and Yoohoo.
Yes,
okay.
yes.
Then Tata's had Tata.com. Okay. So there are a number of things where I have also highlighted the language kind of a thing. Okay. Correct. Different meanings are there for certain things. Say you. And you will never be able to have a solution. That is why I said lookalikes kind of, that is, somebody has used the same lookalikes. I don't know, Adepu should have it. Okay. Lookalikes.in is actually meant for preventing this kind of domain name clashes. But not the phishing, these things. Phishing is a different aspect. You should do it quickly. And nowadays, there are problems about the letters also. Say, for example, when you say ICICIbank.com, I is replaced with L. Kind of a thing. Okay, you cannot visually find it out. So we come back to saying here, have a HTTPS site, and I will click on the lock and find out. That also people are putting an image there. So it looks like HTTPS only. You need to be an expert to actually find out that. So let us not debate too much on that. Yeah.
Just one incident, which Adepu sir, Lime sir asked, is like there was one incident which we managed. Means our team managed in Cisco. It's a very interesting incident, because 3 or 4 years back there was a crypto wallet ransomware. Means it was a new thing, ransomware at that time, and we figured out that one company in China actually was hosting that ransomware, and there was an ISP. And we contacted that hosting site. As sir pointed out, the hosting site The hosting company said, no, we will not remove it. They never replied. So then we went to the ISP and said, please remove it because it's a malicious domain and they are actually sending ransomware related information. And actually they are sending the ransomware malware. The ISP said, China ISP. So they said nothing doing. They didn't reply. So, and this was very critical. So then what our company did is like they approached the tier 2 ISP or tier 1 ISP, which upstream ISP, what we say technically. So then we approached them and said like, remove this domain. If they don't remove this complete ISP routes advertised by this complete ISP, if they don't actually remove this malicious domain. So we informed all those the upstream ISPs, and then we went to this Chinese ISP and said, we have given this information and those ISPs are ready to remove your routes. If the routes are removed, then they cannot do anything. So there is a protocol which works where like BGP, which advertises the routes. We say we'll remove all your routes, and then you will be like, your ISP will be out of business. Then within 24 hours, it got removed. So that is one thing. So it's a very rare case because of the ransomware. And ICANN is one, as I pointed out, where all the domain name resolutions will be resolved. That's one point. And also, as Deepak sir pointed out, there are companies and someone pointed out Palo Alto and Manoj sir, Palo Alto and all the companies have threat intelligence agencies. So they actually monitor this, like firewall and other things. They have to get a feed from somewhere. So malicious website, as Limesh sir pointed out rightly, who will identify that website as malicious? And how to identify it? It's a very practical question. It's not easy to identify a site as malicious, because even the site owners, the actual owners, don't know that their site has been compromised. So what happens is these agencies, every company has a threat intelligence agencies. They monitor all these things. Their job is to monitor, and they send the feed. So those, say for example, Palo Alto has an agency. So they actually monitor all the this. They have a team which monitors all this threat intelligence information, and they set the feed, and the feed will hit the firewall. But the problem is you have to buy that. No company will give you free. The free ones are there, which is not like real time. If you want real time information, you have to pay for that.
Okay, thank you. So there is a question from Mr. Manoj. I'm going for the 27001 certification this year. Should I wait till the new 27001 standard? So, Mr. Manoj, even though new 27001 going to be released in the month of June, July, company going to have 2 years time period, normally 2 years to 18 months to 2 years period to switch over. So in case you're planning to have a 27001 now, there's no problem. You can go ahead with the implementation of the current controls. The effect of the new control will come only after 2 years.
Yeah. Okay, sir. Thank you. Yeah. This is very useful. Yeah.
Any other clarifications?
No, sir. I'm good because one of the location they started working on it, and still because of this new standard, they were confused. Like, should we wait or should we go ahead? Because the new changes are just for 27,002, and so that was confusing. But today I'm very clear on that. Like even ISO is going to make changes in 27,001 as well. So,
yeah, 27002 is only a document of our guidelines.
Yeah.
Use it. It's not a certified standard. Nobody can ask you or ask us to certify me against 27002. It's only a document to help the people how the controls of the NSA of ISMS to be implemented.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you.
This document any date?
What's it?
Any date of a thing like 27001, 2013, 19 like that? For this, what is the latest revision of this document?
So this document is released on the February 15 by ISO globally. It is called ISO 27002:2022. This
Okay.
document is only a guidance, sir. It's not a standard
Hmm.
or anything. It is only helpful for people like you and me to understand how to implement a particular control of ISMS annexure.
Okay.
I'm not sure in 2015 also whether they first released the two. I think Rakesh Javeri may be knowing. In the 2015, 13, first there is a 27002 first, then there is a 27001. I am not at that time in the domain. Okay. Right. I think we are already washed at 8:30. Thank you everyone for your time and being with us.
Thank you, Adepu. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, fine.
Thank you.